be good to go. We are going to try to digest everything that has happened. I mean, from Mitchell Trubisky going to the Steelers, Allen Robinson going to the Rams, Devontae Adams going to the Las Vegas Raiders. There have been a lot of moving pieces as of late, and obviously dynasty values are being affected because of so. I have 3 dynasty startups planned this week alone. So I kind of need to just have a good idea overall of how the dynasty community, in particular the flock, is valuing these players. I have a startup where I'm going to be picking at the 106, so I gave myself the 106 in this mock draft. But of course, before I pivot over and show you all this screen, if you have not done so already, which you know what I'm going to say, and you know you should have done it by now, go down there, drop a like on this live stream. We've live streamed maybe like 10 times over the past 5 days. Nobody is providing these constant updates, these initial reactions, and it's a little nerve-wracking, not going to lie, going live the second something happens because you know you're going to say something stupid. But I think we should be good to go. Let's just go ahead and dive into this startup draft. Let me share my screen here for everybody. Let's go. Let's start the draft. We're going to be at the 106. It's going to be a 12-team super flex tight end premium format. We got a lot of people out in the chat. We got Kevin, Anthony, Brendan, Noah, Tristan, Alex, Oysen, Caleb, Brian, and Alex. Thank y'all. Thank you. Brian says, where is Derek Carr in your rankings? I will be giving y'all those updates to the rankings as we get to players that have made those massive changes like Derek Carr, but I want to wait until after the selection's already been made in the startup draft. I don't want to have too much influence on this draft. I'd rather just use it as a gauge of how the rest of the community is valuing these players. So I'll talk about my opinions on someone like Derek Carr once we get to Carr himself. But let's go ahead and take someone who's had a significant upgrade to his offensive line. Now, I don't want people to be overreacting to the additions the Cincinnati Bengals have made to their offensive line during free agency, because we have to take into consideration they were always going to do this. It's not like the Cincinnati Bengals had it in the range of outcomes for them to come out this free agent period and just completely ignore their offensive line issues. So we're going to take Burrow. We would have taken him here. We would have taken him here at the 106, almost regardless of the offensive line upgrades or not. I just think this is a decent value for the player. And let me switch this over real quick. I just have one thing I need to get out to y'all, and that's going to be the link to our free rankings. Let me actually grab that here. I apologize. We'll switch this right back. If y'all don't know, until Sunday, so I know a lot of y'all are going to be watching this after Sunday, and by then the rankings are going to be back behind the paywall, but at least until Sunday, we are actually going to have the rankings free for everybody because we just passed 13,000 subscribers, and that's with everybody going down there and dropping those likes. So I just want to go out there and give y'all my rankings, and hopefully you can use it in your league. Hopefully it helps you out just the slightest. If you don't care about the rankings, well, who the hell cares? Don't click the link. Don't get them. Well, let's send that out. Okay, so we have Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson going at the 110, the 109. Trey Lance at the 111. Now, you are not going to see Trey Lance at the 111 in most draft rooms. Keep in mind, this is going to be a fantasy flock network draft. Y'all know I've been higher on Trey Lance, and pretty much our entire community's been higher on Trey Lance than anybody else for I don't know how long now. So with Lance himself, don't be expecting the need to take him here at the 111 in your own startup draft. You can easily get him at the 202. Instead, go take Kyle Pitts, take Najee Harris, and in a tight end premium format in particular. Y'all know last year I was making fun of people who were taking Kyle Pitts over Trey Lance. I was talking about how bad of a selection that was overall based on the situation that Lance found himself in with Shanahan, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, with the offensive line, with his rushing upside. Y'all know how much I love Trey Lance. But Kyle Pitts, if Watson makes his way over to Atlanta, which maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already happened. How many players in Dynasty are valued higher than Kyle Pitts in a tight end premium format? I don't have a good answer to that question, but it's very, very few. I think you have to be taking Kyle Pitts over Trey Lance at this point. I'm going to take my L, and I have to admit that. And with Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift going here, I think it's a completely fair mark. These are the running backs that I think you probably have to have over someone I'm probably going to be taking at the 207. Okay. So we have Russell Wilson at the 205. Stafford at the 206. Okay, so we've had obviously a couple different moves. CeeDee Lamb getting a bump up here with Amari Cooper going over to Cleveland, opening up more targets for CeeDee Lamb to become that prototypical wide receiver 1. I know a lot of people are probably not going to agree with my selection here. You know what? We're not going to make it just because we don't have to. I feel like we are in a little bit of no man's land. And in the real startup draft that I'm going to be participating in just a couple days from now, when I get to the 207 here, I would be happy to trade out of this pick, because if I'm looking at the options on the board, I mean, a lot of these players look identical to me with their value. Like, we recently moved CeeDee Lamb up with the trade of Amari Cooper because he's going to be able to get that expanded target share. Oh my God, this is an ugly pick. You know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm taking Breece Hall. I understand that people are not going to like this selection, and I know that making it on a live stream is going to make me look like an idiot here. Now, I recently did go out there, take Cooper Kupp at the end of the second round in a different Dynasty startup that's halfway through at this moment. But I want to just put a stamp on Breece Hall, that this is a player that if you look at his prospect profile, if you look at the boxes that he checks, where he was a great pass-catching running back at Iowa State, he has an elite size speed combo. And not to mention, everybody in the film community is all in on Breece Hall. Not to mention that with Breece Hall here, he should get that late round 1, early round 2 NFL draft capital. If you look at his prospect profile, it's very similar to Ezekiel Elliott. It's very similar to Todd Gurley. Breece Hall is already a top 5 dynasty running back in my opinion. He is only 20 years old. I completely understand. And I think that if most people should take Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey all over Breece Hall. However, when we start this draft off a little bit younger with Joe Burrow, I want to give us the optionality to potentially just build a younger team. And with Hall, I'm expecting him to be a low-end running back 1. His rookie season with his production, I think you can still compete right away with taking Breece Hall in the second round. And at the same time, I think you have that long-term value. So I will be the first person to admit, don't think I'm this out of touch with dynasty leagues. I understand that the majority of people will be able to get Breece Hall in the middle of the third round of their dynasty startup. I completely get that. But going back to what we have previously seen with running backs with this profile, Jonathan Taylor was another perfect example. I mean, Saquon Barkley, another great rookie to go out there and invest into. I mean, you've had Saquon Barkley up there in the first round of dynasty startup drafts his rookie season. You had Jonathan Taylor in the second round of dynasty startups his rookie season. I don't think Breece Hall is that different from those players as a prospect based on what we had at the NFL Combine in particular. I'm all in on Hall. I understand that everybody is going to be making fun of me for this selection, but it is what it is. And this is a running back that if he comes out and he's a low-end running back 1 his rookie season, as I expect him to be, where is he going to be going in startup drafts next year? He will be a consensus round 1 startup pick. What happens if Breece Hall comes out and he's a mid running back 2 his rookie season, a low-end running back 2, just like Javonte Williams was? Well, where's Javonte Williams going now? Javonte Williams going at the 202. It's just the nature of the running back position, investing into the young option with the bell cow profile, because when he does hit, you know that everybody and their mom is going to be willing to move him up into that elite range. I'm going to be early to Breece Hall on this party. I'm going to be overpaying to get Breece Hall in our lineup right away. And I do not think you can take Rodgers at the 301. I think you have to take CMC over Rodgers. At the 301, I would have been completely fine taking Aaron Rodgers before the Davante Adams trade. But even if they go out there and bring in some rookies, even if they draft Treylon Burks with the 22nd pick, even if they go out there and draft Chris Olave as well and go, hey, we got Olave and Treylon Burks to replace It's not happening for me with Aaron Rodgers. He has to be one of the most efficient passers in the NFL. He's not going to provide you anything with his legs, which Rodgers is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire NFL. So, of course, he can get there with the efficiency, but I would rather see that with an elite supporting cast around him, and he's probably going to have the worst supporting cast that he has seen in the past 5 seasons. Okay, so now we're 2 picks away. We have DK Metcalf at the 304. DK Metcalf still has to fall further than this, in my opinion. I don't understand how you could make the argument to take DK Metcalf over Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel in that same draft class. Deebo Samuel, a wide receiver 1 this past season. DK Metcalf, from a points per game standpoint, a wide receiver 3 with Russell Wilson. Now with no Russell Wilson, going to be seeing some of the worst quarterback play he has had in a very long time. I can't take DK Metcalf here. Give me Deebo Samuel instead. I don't know if I'm going to be taking Deebo Samuel at the receiver position. I'd rather maybe scroll through, see what we are going to have elsewhere. A couple of these running backs are interesting to me, but because we took Breece Hall in the mid-second round, I don't feel the need to take another running back here, and I'd rather probably just pivot over and get a receiver that we previously mentioned in Deebo Samuel. I'm not the biggest Deebo Samuel fan in the world. I mean, if you go back looking at his injury history, dating all the way back to high school, college, he stayed all 5 years at South Carolina because of his injury history. We saw the same thing at the beginning of the NFL. There are very, very, very few players in the NFL that I'm willing to say that I'm concerned with their injuries, but Deebo Samuel, Will Fuller, are players that are short on that list. However, when you're looking at Deebo, with what we had this past season, to get him behind someone like DK Metcalf, I'm going to be completely fine with it. Now, if you pull up my actual Dynasty rankings, you are going to see that I believe we have a receiver ranked ahead of Deebo Samuel here. And I will let y'all know who in just 1 second, but let me pull this up. Antonio Gibson would have definitely been the pick here if J.D. McKissic did go to Buffalo. Remember what we were saying before free agency, saying, well, everybody's valuing Antonio Gibson as if there's no J.D. McKissic in Washington. I'm worried that this coaching staff still thinks that they need that pass-catching running back. So maybe they let J.D. McKissic walk and bring in someone like Chase Edmonds. Now, of course, that ended up not happening, but what did happen, they just brought back J.D. McKissic after we thought he was going to go to Buffalo. So that definitely does hurt Antonio Gibson. And trust me, nobody was higher on Antonio Gibson his rookie season than I was. This was a running back that, very similar to Breece Hall, checked every single one of the boxes that you look for from a combine perspective, from, a pass-catching standpoint as a former wide receiver in college. However, we just can't ignore the first 2 seasons we've had in his NFL career where they want to use him as a first and second down grinder anyway. So if we're looking at Deebo Samuel, I have him in the same tier as Davante Adams and Jalen Waddle. We have to move Davante Adams behind him because with Davante Adams is a wide receiver that's probably going to be going off the board very soon. The issue is, this is an option that not only is getting a significant downgrade at the quarterback position from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr, and Derek Carr's a great quarterback. I don't want to make it seem like I'm some massive Derek Carr hater, but we can all agree Derek Carr is not Aaron Rodgers, okay? Can we all get on board with that statement? To go along with this, you're also going to have the toughest target competition for Davante Adams that he has seen, I want to say, since Jordy Nelson. I don't know the last time we had this target competition for Davante Adams. It had to be 2014, 2015. He has Darren Waller. I'm not too worried about Hunter Renfrow. I have an in-depth video breaking down Hunter Renfrow coming out on the channel tomorrow. But I would really be worried about Darren Waller and what it will mean from a target share perspective on Davante Adams. I don't think he's going to get to the 32% of his team's targets that we have seen over the past 2 seasons. I think instead he's probably going to come down to around 27, 28%, which is still an elite mark, but it's definitely a step down previous to what we have seen. And to go along with this, the drop of the quarterback play as well will probably hurt his efficiency. So I do think we have to move Davante Adams behind Deebo Samuel in our Dynasty ranking. So we're going to have Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 8, Davante Adams at wide receiver 9. T. Higgins is a fine selection. I do have T. Higgins 1 tier down from Deebo Samuel, but we have Alvin Kamara, Cam Akers, Austin Eckler going at the end of the 3rd. Okay, so Stephon Diggs, the 401. I have Diggs in the same exact tier as what I have with T. Higgins. It's interesting to look at Stephon Diggs versus Davante Adams. I believe Stephon Diggs is 1 year younger as well. Yeah, Stephon Diggs 1 year younger than Davante Adams. Because obviously you're looking at Diggs in the context, well, he has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He has a very limited target competition around him. He's younger than Adams at the same time. We've seen Stephon Diggs go out there and put up a top 3 wide receiver season at the position. So it is an interesting case study as well to be thinking about Stephon Diggs versus Davante Adams in that same tier, because we still have Davante Adams on the board. And I think maybe, am I being too reluctant to move Davante Adams down as much as I should? Should I have him a tier above the options in Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs, and T. Higgins? Treylon Burks goes to the 403. I have Treylon Burks as my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty for this rookie class in particular, but to take him here at the 403, I think that is a little aggressive. I know I'm out here probably looking like a hypocrite after taking Breece Hall at the 207, but I mean, as soon as we had that NFL Combine, I mean, I came out here and I corrected all my mistakes of having Breece Hall ranked behind someone like Treylon Burks, because I didn't expect Breece Hall to have his BMI, to have his 40-yard dash time, the 2 boxes that are so damn important to combine for that running back prospect profile. Okay, so we have Dalvin Cook at the 405. Oh my gosh, am I getting... We have a couple interesting options here. We could go with Davante Adams, who I believe is a great value on the board at this point. We could go with Joe Mixon, who's maybe a little bit further down by running back rankings. We have Joe Mixon ranked at running back 12. I do have him ranked behind Saquon Barkley in our running back rankings, but we have Joe Burrow. They did upgrade the offensive line, so we would be getting a pseudo stack with Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon betting on that offense. Maybe we get the pseudo stack betting on the 49ers offense, taking George Kittle at the 407. Now, I'm not going to do so because I think getting Hawkinson just next round is about the same thing. God, we have Dobbins. I feel like it's a great value. I actually have Dobbins ranked ahead of Joe Mixon as well. I understand Joe Mixon is incredibly young for being in that 2017 draft class, but still at the end of the day, he's about to have no guaranteed money left on that contract after this next season. You know what? I'm going to take Joe Mixon here. I want to see where other people are ranking Davante Adams. Davante Adams goes to the 408. I think that could easily be a mistake on my part. If I didn't have Joe Burrow, I definitely would have gone with Davante Adams, maybe a tight end. But my issue with taking a tight end here is I really do think that TJ Hawkinson, if you look at the ascension he's had over the past 2 seasons, being that mid tight end 1 from a points per game perspective in a tight end premium format, only at 25 years old coming into this upcoming season, going into year 4 of his NFL career, I honestly have TJ Hawkinson right there. I mean, next to George Kittle in our rankings. I really think that the difference between Hawkinson and Kittle is non-existent. Dobbins of the 409, great value on J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins is cheaper now than he was before the injury a year ago. And this is why I'm telling people, you know what? I thought that Calvin Ridley was a great buy low, the best buy low in Dynasty a month ago before the suspension. But after this suspension, I am not rushing out there to get Calvin Ridley, because once these players take a year off, I mean, the Dynasty community kind of forgets about them. So I think you're actually probably going to see Calvin Ridley, very similar to what you have with J.K. Dobbins here, where Dobbins was not lasting to the 409 last offseason before the injury. Instead, he was going at the 2-3 turn. I think you'll probably get Calvin Ridley continuing to slide over the next year, just because, I mean, nobody's really talking about him. Nobody's seen him in a very long time, so there's no hype built around him. Okay. SPAC coming out says, AJ Dillon, I got you, my man. I'm surprised you weren't screaming for J.K. Dobbins at first. Okay, so we have Seabass out here auto drafting. Are you freaking kidding me? We are going to mark his name down if he does not come back in. Okay, it looks like he's back in the draft. Thank God. Okay, but Barkley goes at the 411. Love Barkley there. I mean, if we are looking at Saquon Barkley, this is a running back that, yes, I mean, he was playing in a full-blown committee with Devontae Booker at the end of the year. And with Barkley, of course, his points per game took a massive hit. His opportunities took a massive hit to go along with this. But if we take a step back, he was playing with Mike Glennon. The Giants had Mike Glennon at starting quarterback. What was supposed to happen with Saquon Barkley? He was supposed to go into an offense that at some times couldn't hit 100 passing yards in an entire half. And he was supposed to go, hey, Mike, dump it. Just hit me with the screen. I'm taking it. And that's not possible. It's not going to work that way if they have absolutely no threat whatsoever to just get the attention off of Barkley. Okay, so Mac Jones goes to the 502. Interesting to see Carr go at the 501. Now, if we're looking at Derek Carr, this is a quarterback that's going to be about 30 years old. This is about the range where I've updated him in our rankings. I mean, if we are looking at Derek Carr in my rankings, I have him at quarterback 18. I do have him behind Mac Jones by one spot, behind one other option that's yet to go off the board, and I don't want to bring up his name because I think there's a possibility that we end up getting him here at the 506, but we're probably going to take a tight end in the tight end premium format, to be honest. There are a bunch of different options we could have. I like the way this board's falling to us. I feel like we are stuck in no man's land with the 207, the 306, the 407. Travis Etienne, great pick. Hawkinson, great pick as well. I guess we're going to go Kittle. We are talking about the potential of going with George Kittle. Previously, we already have one bet on the 49ers offense. Might as well double down on that offense, get a pseudo Cincinnati Bengals stack and a pseudo 49ers stack going at the same time. We're going to take George Kittle at the 506 in the tight end premium format. Here, I don't necessarily think that Kittle's a great value in all Dynasty startups. I mean, I've seen him in the 2 startups we've had over the past 2 weeks, and I'm talking real money startups here. I've seen George Kittle go at the beginning of the 3rd round. At that price point, I would definitely prefer just waiting for TJ Hawkinson in the middle of the 5th. I have them ranked back to back in the same tier in our Dynasty rankings. But Kittle at the 506, sign me up in a tight end premium format. Okay, so now let's see afterwards. I think that there are still so many interesting players on the board. What's really weird, am I missing? How the hell? I am not going to say anything right now because I want a player to fall back to us. There's someone way too far down there with this ADP. Spax says, chances Aaron Rodgers request a trade and retires. I was saying this in my initial reaction yesterday. Has been confirmed that Aaron Rodgers did not know this was happening, because my natural assumption was when Rodgers signed that mega contract, he knew this was going down. Of course, maybe I'm naive, but my assumption is if you're signing that 5-year deal to commit you to that team, you're probably having a decent amount of say in the decisions that front office makes. I haven't seen anything to say, to show otherwise. Yeah, I just searched this. Ian Rappaport, while Aaron Rodgers was negotiating his contract, he knew Davante Adams would never play for the Packers again. Like, trust me, Aaron Rodgers knows what's going on. It's not like, that's why I don't get everybody like acting like Rodgers was completely out of the loop. Aaron Rodgers knows more than I do, you do, and everybody does about the Green Bay Packers organization. This is not something that just happens overnight. So, no, I think that Aaron Rodgers knew this was happening. Aaron Rodgers signed off on this. That was my initial reaction, and based on looking at this up on Twitter and Rappaport saying the same thing, Ian Rappaport usually knows what's going on. Malik Willis to the 509, great selection of Malik Willis. That's why I was so damn confused looking at this ADP board, seeing Malik Willis down here in the 70s. 20 picks behind Matt Corral, 20 picks behind Kenny Pickett. Malik Willis here at the 509, great value. Like, if you're going to ask me, Mason, would you rather have Justin Fields at the 310? And I recently took Justin Fields at the 3-4 turn in a Dynasty startup draft. I understand. Y'all know I am the resident Justin Fields hater. Y'all know, how much crap I've thrown in Justin Fields' direction for the past 2 years. But that's when he was going ahead of Trey Lance. That's when he was going ahead of Russell Wilson. That's when he was going ahead of Matthew Stafford. That's when he was going ahead of Deshaun Watson. That's when he was going ahead of Aaron Rodgers. That's when I was throwing crap at Justin Fields. You want to take Fields here, the 3-4 turn, I'm fine with it. But Malik Willis, speaking of rushing upside, going to have a similar team investment into him that Justin Fields did, possibly in a better situation, because can't get much worse than that Chicago Bears situation. Love Malik Willis here at the 509. Okay. So David Montgomery at the 601. I think we actually where did I take David Montgomery in our last startup? I think I took him at the 6-7 turn. Let me pull this up with where Jayan and I took David Montgomery, because I definitely drafted Montgomery. I was Not too happy about it. We drafted him as our like running back 3. Y'all know usually I prefer passing on those running backs in Dynasty startups, but people have gotten a lot smarter with running back value. Let me see where I took him. Took David Montgomery at the 6'11". Darren Waller goes to the 6'02". I would have been screaming how great of a value that was on Darren Waller previous to the Davante Adams trade, but with the Davante Adams red zone usage, with Davante Adams presumably taking about 28% of this team's targets, I don't know if I can get behind Darren Waller at the 6'02". Okay. Yeah, and Josh Jacobs, I think Jacobs has to take a hit as well. We recently took Josh Jacobs in the 7th round of a startup, but honestly, I don't think I'd even be considering him here in the middle of the 6th, even though I shouldn't be saying that when we're not up on the board yet. Okay, so let me see if there are any picks. I think that this Malik Willis selection, like if Malik Willis is close to a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, y'all know I'm not one of these people pretending like I'm some expert NFL draft quarterback scout when, I mean, it is the hardest job on the planet. People get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to go out there and scout those quarterbacks and make that team investment. But at the end of the day, if he's a top 10, oh my God, what is going on? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devonta Smith. This is getting crazy. I will say Amon-Ra St. Brown, definitely a winner of this free agent period. I mean, with DJ Chark coming in, DJ Chark has had one solid season, his second year back in 2019. I mean, one decent year out of a 4-year stretch in his career. Nick Chubb at the 606. Y'all know I have been a Nick Chubb hater for a very long time, but talk about a value. I mean, getting Nick Chubb at the 606, he is the same exact player that y'all were drafting in the 2nd round. He's the best committee running back in the NFL. That's what he's always been, playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So no, nobody should have been drafting him in the 2nd round last year when he doesn't have the receiving upside that you can have with Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, or Breece Hall. But if you're getting him here in the middle of the 6th round, one of the best picks in the draft. Okay, so now let me pull up my own board. I think we're probably going to end up going Terry McLaurin. With McLaurin, I am not a massive fan. I will say Carson Wentz is going to be the best quarterback that he's ever played with. However, at the same time, I mean, it's not like Carson Wentz is an above-average quarterback by any means. So we're going to take McLaurin here at the 607. Very similar to Nick Chubb. This is a player that I was screaming last year was being drastically overvalued. But he's the same exact guy he's always been. He's someone that's probably going to get 27% of his team's targets in a very bad offense, be very inefficient with that volume, but at the end of the day, they still don't have anybody else to throw the ball to. They probably will draft someone in the NFL draft, however. Okay, so DeAndre Hopkins at the 608. Let's see how far Isaiah Spiller falls. When is the Texas A&M Pro Day? It has to be coming up soon, right? Okay, it's just pulled up the schedule because I really want to see that Isaiah Spiller 40-yard dash time. Okay, so search Texas A&M March 22nd. We got 4 days till the Isaiah Spiller Pro Day. 4 days till we actually know the profile that we're going to be looking at here. And of course, we'll have to adjust it for Pro Day times because they are going to be a little bit skewed compared to what we'd have at the NFL Combine. Kirk Cousins, Matt Corral, great picks, both players. I think that we have them ranked almost back-to-back in our rankings. If you pull this up, we have Kirk Cousins at quarterback 20. I have Matt Corral at quarterback 21. Aaron Jones at the 6'11". With Aaron Jones, if we're looking at just the overall function of the Green Bay Packers offense, I think that he is probably the one player that will actually benefit at the running back position. Like if we look at him versus A.J. Dillon, for instance, while A.J. Dillon will get the bump up in his overall red zone opportunities from a percentage standpoint of the offense, I think the trips to the red zone for the Green Bay Packers are going to be limited compared to what they would have had with Davante Adams. And overall, it's probably going to hurt A.J. Dillon. But with Aaron Jones, I would imagine that he definitely gets back to having 7 targets a game. I mean, almost leading the NFL at the running back position on a per game basis for the targets that he is going to get out of the backfield, because they're really going to need to try to get creative in how they can just use some of these weapons in the receiving game in particular. Okay. So Elijah Mitchell at the 701. I'm completely fine with Elijah Mitchell going here. I probably wouldn't have taken Elijah Mitchell if he fell to us. Okay, so Jameson Williams, Calvin Ridley. This is what I was speaking on previously. Y'all know, I mean, I was advocating to aggressively draft Calvin Ridley. I was telling people to be drafting Calvin Ridley up here ahead of someone like Elijah Moore. Like, if you would have asked me before the suspension, Mason, Calvin Ridley or Chris Olave, Ridley or Hopkins, Ridley, McLaurin or Ridley, Smith or Ridley. I would have preferred Calvin Ridley over all these receivers up until we got to like Chris Godwin. I would have been advocating to draft Calvin Ridley here at the beginning of the 5th round. But after a year-long suspension, I am not even going to feel the need to draft Calvin Ridley in the middle of the 7th here. Because as I previously have said, there's just nothing that can happen for his dynasty value to have that sharp uptick. I mean, if you want Calvin Ridley, you'll be able to pay the same price, if not a slightly discounted price, next offseason. Okay, so now we are up on the clock. We don't really need to go tight end. I think our best receiver available is probably going to be Pittman. It's either Pittman or... I think we have one other player ranked up in this range. Actually, we probably have 2 players ranked up in this range. But the thing is, we could get one on the way back. Some of these running backs definitely are interesting. We are going to go with the receiver. You have to start 3 receivers in this league. It just comes down to... Yeah, let's just take Michael Pittman. Of course, as it stands, Michael Pittman looks like he's going to have some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL this year. However, I don't think we are going to see Sam Ehlinger starting games for the Indianapolis Colts this upcoming season. Trust me, I would love to see it. I went to the University of Texas all 4 years Sam Ehlinger was there. I saw him walking around campus a ton, of course, hook 'em horns. But at the end of the day, he's not an NFL quality starting quarterback. I'd imagine they end up bringing in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. Bringing in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, Ayuk, Pickens at the 707, the 708. If you're looking at where I have Brandon Ayuk compared to Michael Pittman, I have Ayuk as the wide receiver 29 and Michael Pittman as the wide receiver 25. I have George Pickens really far down these rankings. I have George Pickens, behind guys like Ayuk, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Darnell Mooney, Mike Williams, Rashad Bateman, Chase Claypool, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. I have George Pickens way down these rankings. Isaiah Spiller at the 709. I would also prefer Isaiah Spiller over George Pickens, even with Isaiah Spiller definitely as a massive faller as of late. I was ranking Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller back to back at the beginning of this offseason. If you go back to our rankings in January, the gap between Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall it wasn't existent for me because we looked at them. We said, okay, well, they both were able to handle large workloads at the college level. They were both more than capable pass catchers. They're both listed around the same size, and they should have a similar athletic profile. However, that's not the case at all. They get to the combine. Breece Hall is a bigger running back and shows that he has that elite athleticism. Isaiah Spiller skips pretty much the combine with the 40-yard dash. So Isaiah Spiller definitely has to be a massive faller, not to mention that Breece Hall, if you're just looking at the complete dominance you had in his backfield, going out there and averaging over 25 touches per game, or Isaiah Spiller being a little bit closer to a committee running back at Texas A&M. Yeah, that was just a horrible ranking, and I'm happy that we have adjusted that. Now, Hollywood Brown at the 712. Love that pick of Hollywood Brown. If you're looking at him alongside Lamar Jackson in the first half of the season when Lamar was healthy, Hollywood Brown was a low-end wide receiver 1. I think Hollywood is a fantastic value here. Hollywood was the player I was considering when we were looking at taking Michael Pittman. If you check out our rankings, I have Hollywood Brown ranked ahead of Michael Pittman. That is how high I am on Hollywood. Now, the thing is, Hollywood Brown had an ADP where he's going in the late 8th, early 9th. So I knew there was no chance we were getting Michael Pittman falling to us in the middle of the 8th. And there was a small chance we were going to get Hollywood Brown making it back to us. So it is what it is, but we try to get both. Didn't happen. They are in the same tier for me, so it's not that big of a difference regardless. Okay, so let's go through Tua Tagovailoa at the 802. So Jasmine says, not saying Breece Hall is Jonathan Taylor because I don't think he is, but they both put up crazy production in college, same size and same measurables. Yeah, I mean, the Breece Hall profile does not look that different than Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was a better athlete, but Jonathan Taylor is one of the best athletes that we have ever seen at the NFL Combine. They're very comparable prospects. Like if you look at the Breece Hall prospect profile, really the only bust that he will compare to out of 10 plus running backs, like there's a large grouping of running backs, guys like Zeke, Jonathan Taylor, Todd Gurley, that Breece Hall looks like. The one bust that you have is Rashad Penny. And I think Rashad Penny had the talent. I just think Rashad Penny wasn't able to stay healthy. And if Breece Hall's 20 years old, so you're telling me that you're getting that insulated dynasty value at the same time? Sign me up. Like, I'm all about Breece Hall here. I think that you could easily make the argument to take Mark Andrews over him, to take Kupp, to take CeeDee Lamb, to take A.J. Brown, to take Christian McCaffrey all over Breece Hall. It's going to be just a little bit harder for me to do that at the beginning of a startup, knowing that, I mean, we are getting the ability to really just have the insulation with Breece Hall, where if Christian McCaffrey has a down year, you could see his value falling to being where Ezekiel Elliott's currently valued. Where Breece Hall, if he has a down year, he's going to be like a 4th round startup pick. Okay, so now up on the clock. Carter has successfully dodged free agency up until this point. You know what? There are a couple interesting receivers. What quarterbacks are available? Honestly, I'm going to wait on quarterback. I don't feel the need to take any of these options. There are a couple interesting receivers that I think I can get later. There's one running back. Actually, there are a couple of running backs that stand out as well. I really like this selection here. We'll take a running back. We're going to go Leonard Fournette. There's one other running back that I think you can easily make an argument for, and I wouldn't fault anybody. But with Fournette here, I'm operating under the assumption that you have him going back to Tampa once you have Tom Brady. I mean, coming back in, of course, that is beautiful. But why I am so excited about Leonard Fournette is all the reasons we've talked about over, I don't want to say the past month, but maybe the past 3 weeks once his dynasty value has fallen to this point. I mean, remember, you actually had Leonard Fournette as a player that was going in the 10th round in some of our mock drafts previously. This is an option that if you look at the leftover spots for him to land in free agency, like where's Fournette going to go? The Bills or the Bucks? Essentially, that's what I'm looking at. I think that here with Leonard Fournette, this is a running back that you can almost pencil in to be a top 10 option this upcoming season, assuming he's able to stay healthy, given the role that he has had in the receiving game. I mean, even last year, he wasn't crazy with his touchdown rate. He was averaging like half a touchdown a game, which if you look at his workload, isn't much at all. I don't think that it was driven by Brady last year with this production. I think that Leonard Fournette has the profile to be that 3-down option. Okay, so Michael Thomas at 809. Michael Thomas probably would have been the receiver I would have gone with. There were 2 receivers I was looking at. Michael Thomas was one of them. Okay, so Dawson Knox at the 810. Dawson Knox, definitely, in my opinion, does take a hit. I mean, with the addition of O.J. Howard, I will be the first one to admit I am very biased with O.J. Howard. He was a tight end that I loved back in 2017. I mean, that was back when Dynasty. Y'all think I am into Dynasty fantasy football now? You should have seen me in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. Like, there was nothing, and I repeat, nothing else I would think about. Now I kind of have to think about YouTube. I kind of have to think about locals and a bunch of other things related to Dynasty fantasy football. But back then, it was just my Dynasty teams. Back then, it was just rookies overall. Fell in love with O.J. Howard in that 2017 draft class. So maybe I'm overreacting a little bit here, but I do think he takes a small hit into Dawson Knox. Okay, Batman Gaming coming out says, got offered Amara St. Brown and Darrell Henderson for the 110. If it was a super flex format, I think that I probably am just going to look to hold on to the 110. One quarterback league, give me Amara St. Brown, especially after he's able to dodge free agency here. But let's count out how many rookies went ahead of Amara St. Brown in this draft in particular. It definitely wasn't 10. I will say that. I mean, here you have Breece Hall as 1, Treylon Burks, Malik Willis, Garrett Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Drake London. So you had Amara St. Brown valued about the 107. Just for some context, I think one quarterback format, easily give me Amaro St. Brown, super flex, be a little bit harder to pass up on the flexibility of that pick, because if the Detroit Lions end up going with Treylon Burks or someone of that ilk, I think it's going to be a very tough scenario for Amaro St. Brown in particular. Okay, so Dalton Schultz at the 902. Dalton Schultz, I mean, talk about someone who's had a great offseason here. Ryan Tannehill at the 903. I personally was hoping that we were going to be getting Ryan Tannehill coming back to us. That's why I felt like we could pass on the quarterback position based on the ADP that we were looking at. James Conner goes to the 904. James Conner, very similar to Leonard Fournette at this point. I think we're probably going to end up with receiver. Yeah, there's a tier of 4 wide receivers that all rank together for us that are still available on the board. Quarterback, these guys we can wait. I don't think anybody's really going to be reaching to take any of these players here. What does Grinding the Mocks currently have Sam Howell as? Just want to see where Sam Howell's supposed to end up going. Sam Howell currently is projected to be an early second round pick in the NFL draft. Yeah, I'm not taking Sam Howell here. I don't know why his ADP is here on Sleeper. Okay, going through, my favorite running back would most likely be Miles Sanders. I don't think we need to take Miles Sanders here, though, compared to some of the other receivers. I will say these names out loud because I don't think they're really making it back to us, so it doesn't really matter. And also, everybody has access to my rankings. But the players that I have left ranked in the same tier are Rashad Bateman, Chase Claypool, Amari Cooper, and Calvin Ridley. I think they are all in the same tier. I don't think you can go with really an incorrect pick out of any of those guys. I'm just going to end up going with Rashad Bateman here. Despite his ADP being this far behind Jameson Williams, I personally can't get behind Jameson Williams over someone like Rashad Bateman compared to Bateman's profile, where Bateman broke out at the early age. Bateman showed dominance at every pretty much opportunity he had in college. Jameson Williams has that 1 year in Alabama. And I know it was a very impressive year. I know he is an elite athlete at the same time, but coming off a significant injury very, very late in the season, I'm going to be hesitant to draft Jameson Williams, to say the least. Jasmine says, you really think Jameson lasts this long in Dynasty startups? He has an ADP of 62. We are well into pick 100. So I would say in most startups, he's probably not lasting this long. I don't have him ranked over guys like Rashad Bateman, Chase Claypool, or, Calvin Ridley even, but I'm just not a Jameson Williams guy. Okay, Kadarius Toney at the 907. Ooh, where do I have Kadarius Toney ranked? Did I miss out on Toney? No, I have Kadarius Toney ranked one spot below those guys. Zamir White at the 908. Interesting to see Zamir White over Miles Sanders, over Rashad White. I probably prefer Rashad White with the receiving upside in a PPR format. Where does Grinding the Mocks have Zamir White going currently? I'm not obviously looking for a landing spot. I'm more so looking at just the draft capital. Yeah, he's supposed to be a 4th round NFL draft pick. Oh, no, I apologize. That's Rashad White. Interesting to see Rashad White hasn't really gone up as of late. That's something I definitely need to revisit. Zamir White is supposed to be the 4th running back off the board. Breece Hall now is supposed to be the 1st running back off the board. Interesting to also see that they're still projecting Breece Hall to be a late second round pick at pick 54. I would easily bet the under on pick 54. Allen Robinson at the 909. Allen Robinson, definitely a player that's trending in the right direction. If you do get Robert Woods traded, Allen Robinson's going to be in a much, much better situation. Now, with Allen Robinson, he's had a solid 3 years of his NFL career since 2014. Yes, he's had some of the worst quarterback play at the same time as well. But if we're just looking at, okay, I thought we were about to be done with the startup. I was like, oh my God, this is not scrolling down. But still, if we're looking at Allen Robinson with the inconsistency that we've had, with how he just got lapped by Darnell Mooney in Chicago, maybe I'm getting just too much recency bias in my mind because I drafted Allen Robinson a ton last year, but it's going to be really hard for me to just buy right back in to Allen Robinson, especially when you're going to have Cooper Kupp getting 30% of his team's targets. Okay, so let's pivot over. Jahan Dotson at the 9-12. Completely fine with this value. I have him ranked back-to-back with Jameson Williams. Miles Sanders at the 10-01. How bad was Miles Sanders last year to be falling this much in drafts? Because Miles Sanders, I mean, he was drafted in 2019. This still is a younger option at the position. He still is on that rookie contract. I guess he was behind Devin Singletary from a per-game perspective. Interesting to see this, though. Maybe Miles Sanders, just from a bird's eye perspective, Miles Sanders this past year had 163 touches and 0 touchdowns. There's no way in hell that happens again. This is a player that's had 50 receptions in a season before. I think Miles Sanders probably great value here at the 10-01. I mean, if you're getting him behind someone like Zamir White. Okay, so Desmond Ridder at the 10-03. Kareem Hunt at the 10-04. I guess after talking all this crap on how we were not going to be drafting Calvin Ridley, we may end up drafting Calvin Ridley. Where did Amari end up going? At the 8-11? Adam Thielen goes to the 10-05. Yeah, with Noah Fant as well. I love Noah Fant before the trade, but to see the fact that the Denver Broncos were willing to just include him to get that deal done, I mean, I don't want to say as a throw-in, but the whole that the Seahawks got for Russell Wilson, it almost made it look like Noah Fant was just a throw-in. And it's not going to be a great scenario if you're going to get targets concentrated between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in an offense that doesn't want to throw the ball, and it's going to be a lot less efficient without Russell Wilson. Okay, so Adam Thielen at the 10-05. Let's see what makes it back. Noah Fant does go at the 10-06. I know I have talked about the fact that we weren't looking to draft Calvin Ridley here, or here, with him being the highest available according to ADP. But at some point, I think we have to look at the player. The last we saw of him fully healthy, he was a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. He's going to be back just to give us a year next season. I know we've talked crap on how his value is not going to be able to really go up this year, but if his value stays at the 10-07 all season, I'm going to be completely fine with that. I mean, let me pull up where he's actually gone in some of our other startups. Because Jan wanted to take him in, I believe, the Flock 10. And I was like, you know what? No, we can't take Calvin Ridley anything close to this range. And I believe there's no way he ended up lasting this far. Calvin Ridley went at the 9-07 in our last startup. He went right before Allen Robinson. He went before Amari Cooper. He went before Tom Brady. Very interesting there. Okay, so Christian Kirk at the 10-09. I have Christian Kirk ranked right in this range. Obviously, with Kirk, he has the money. He looks like he's going to be the alpha target in Jacksonville. I have Christian Kirk ranked at wide receiver 38 and Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 37. So I think Christian Kirk here, that is a fine selection. Fine selection. Robert says, are you not worried about Roger Goodell banning Calvin Ridley for life? Isn't that a potential outcome? I would be surprised if that does happen. I mean, a year suspension is already a very tough mark. I would imagine what ends up happening is he serves the year, and then if he has another occurrence, then it's banned for life. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, that's unfair. I mean, I bet all the time on games. The NFL is about one thing, and one thing. We talk about this all the time. That's why we said to buy low on Deshaun Watson. What the NFL cares about is their money. They are a business. I don't want to say that's how it should be. That's how it shouldn't be, but it's how it is. So if Calvin Ridley threatens a large portion of that business, which is now the sports betting industry, Of course, he's going to get hit with a harsh punishment, but I think being suspended for life, is probably one step too far before he's at least had a warning. I'd imagine it's more so, hey, you were going to be suspended for a year. Do it again. Suspended for life. Okay, so now we have Damien Harris at the 11:01. Someone says, what are your thoughts on starting the draft with 2 high-end quarterbacks? If you have the option to, yeah, I think that's a fantastic start. But in reality, we just simply didn't here. I mean, we went Joe Burrow at the 106. And if we were to get another high-end quarterback, who are we taking in the middle of the second? I'm not taking Rodgers here with no Devontae Adams. I'm not taking Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence almost made it back to us in the middle of the third. So, yeah, we really didn't have the option to take another high-end quarterback. I think if we were to go back and just put ourselves in a time machine, a pick that we could have changed Terry McLaurin for Kirk Cousins. Instead of that, I feel like we've been boxed out of the quarterback position, but I'm going to be fine taking a couple quarterbacks here. We probably get our first guy here, to be honest. Yeah. I think we're probably going to end up taking Gallup goes to the 11:05. Love the Michael Gallup selection. There are a couple of quarterbacks that we have ranked in the same tier. We have Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Mitchell Trubisky all ranked back to back to back. I think we're probably going to end up taking 2 of these guys. I'm going to end up going Carson Wentz here. I don't think Carson Wentz is a great quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. But if we're getting him in the middle of the 11th, behind players like John Mechie, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Gallup, I'm going to be fine with it. We also drafted Terry McLaurin at the 607. So because his rushing upside, I actually have Daniel Jones ranked 1 spot higher. But because we have Terry McLaurin on this team, and I think we're guaranteed to get a starting season out of Carson Wentz this upcoming year, I'm going to be fine taking Carson Wentz at the 11:06. Of course, we're not that excited about it, but the top players according to ADP are Kyron Williams, Justin Ross, Carson Strong, Rondell Watt Robinson, Trey McBride, James Cook, Mike Gesicki, Devin Singletary. I think Carson Wentz at the 11:06 completely fine. Okay, so now Asian Arrow. I need to figure out how to say that name. This is someone that's been a part of the flock for a very, very long time on the clock. Robert says, thoughts on Davis Mills. Is he just another placeholder for Houston to draft a quarterback next year, or did he show enough to potentially keep the starting job going forward? Oh, definitely just a placeholder. I mean, if he comes out and if he puts up a top 10 quarterback season, of course, it's going to be a different story. But the supporting cast that he has around him is going to make that a tall task, to say the least. Trubisky goes at the 11:09. Who do y'all prefer in Dynasty at this point? Do you prefer Trubisky or Carson Wentz? Please, please, please let me know. Let me scroll up as well so y'all can see the entire draft board. Can I hide my screen here? Okay, yeah, there we go. So please leave a comment. Let me know what we did wrong with this team. Let me know what we can improve on going forward. And I think we'll probably call it after this next round in round 12. So I am... Okay, so looks like most people prefer Carson Wentz. Robert says, don't make us choose. Yeah, I think one calling card that Trubisky could have is he's a better supporting cast as well as more rushing upside overall. Okay, so are we about to have a second person on auto draft? Okay, so we have a second person on auto draft here. Once people go on auto, it just ruins the draft overall. So honestly, we're not even going to draft through the 12th round. We have 2 teams on auto. But thank you, of course, for being a part of the flock. Thank you for supporting the channel. And you can go down the description of the video, completely free rankings until Sunday. Don't need to put in your credit card or anything like that. Literally, if you can't find the rankings, just go, click on the page, click on free rankings. I know some people have had an issue with that, but if you click on free rankings, they're there. Sorry we had those auto picks, but of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock, supporting the channel. Hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow where I just crap on Hunter Renfrow and probably make a lot of people mad, but it is what it is. He's dead with Devontae Adams. Thank you again, and have a great day.